Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Max, when I was at the Farm Futures Summit, I heard from a lot of growers they had a good year, but the volatility was stressful. That can have some mental health impacts, can it?
You know, this time of the year, I think it's especially stressful. You have the weather challenges that come along on top of all of the uncertainty of the business. We talked about that with the grower just the other day, and we shared that visit through the auspices of FMC and Farm Futures. We talked with Kelly Garrett, who farms at Arion, Iowa. And one thing I noted in the conversation with him is the fact that you really can't get away from farming when you're a farmer.
It's the nature of the job, because it's not really a job, it's a vocation. I think when people with real jobs, quote unquote I think when people with real jobs go home, they talk about golfing or fishing or hunting or something like that. And farmers just live and breathe it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it very much is a different mentality. And at times it becomes stressful.
And rural communities tend to be rather close. I mean, when there's something happening with somebody, nearly everybody knows about it, it seems. I remember as a kid, my dad was a farmer, and you'd talk about somebody maybe being not quite right. Well, that could have been the flu, that could have been pneumonia, but in many instances, they were dealing with some kind of a stress or mental challenge.
You're exactly right. And when you're here in rural America and there's much less people, my hometown only has just a couple hundred people in it, and you would think that you'd be anonymous living in the country, but you're much more anonymous being in Des Moines or Chicago or Omaha than you are being in an Arion or Dow City, Iowa, because everybody knows everybody and everybody knows what's going on, or at least think they do, with the rumor mill. And it's kind of hard to have any privacy in some respects.
There's a lack of resources, too. People continue to talk about that. We just don't have and especially when you look at that heart of America where you are and up into the Dakotas, we just don't have the mental resources that we do in metropolitan areas, correct?
Exactly right. Labor for anything is getting farther and farther between, harder and harder to get. And the lack of resources in rural America is becoming very scarce.
What do you say to someone to prove the point to them that this is not a sign of weakness, to try to to get some help, to go visit with someone, to get some counseling with a stress problem, a mental challenge that almost all of us deal with at some point?
I try to say that every day I want to have fun. And now, obviously, every day isn't fun, but that is my goal. And there's no reason to not be happy in life. And if you're struggling in any aspect of your life, and you need help, go talk to somebody and figure out how to do that. And just, don't try to shoulder that load by yourself all the time.
In a rural community, who would be those natural touch points, if you will? Somebody to talk to, a minister, a priest? Who would you recommend?
Yes, I would very much. That would be the first people that come to mind for me. The priest, your minister, a family member or a mentor. I have several gentlemen that would be in my dad's age that I consider to be mentors because of the different walks of life they come from, and I draw on all of them to help me out when I need it.
They are important, aren't they? I think I've found that to be true in my life, and I look at younger people who are fortunate enough to, and it may be, as you point out, from another walk in life where they really have a different perspective, and there's something special about that, isn't there, Kelly?
There is. When you come from a different walk of life, not farming, and you have that different perspective towards agriculture. My dad's good friend, Tom, he's not family, but he's like family. And Tom was a feed salesman, was high up in the co-op association. And when it comes to feeding cattle or any sort of business perspective, I talk to Tom a lot, and he's a very trusted advisor for me.
As we were reminded in extreme weather a few days ago, and the difficulty of trying to feed cattle in all of those rough conditions in the end of December, there are stresses that can come in waves. You can get a surge of them. And it's no respecter of persons. I think when we think about people we've lost in our communities who just weren't able to deal with some kind of a mental challenge, it's a reminder to us that it can touch people from all walks of life, right?
Absolutely, it can. And that's another problem with agriculture that I see. So many things are out of our control, and when your livelihood, and it really goes beyond financial, because it very much is our life to be successful, and we shoulder that burden to raise a successful crop. It goes beyond money, and when some of those things are out of your control, like Mother Nature, and you have that devastating weather, it very much weighs on your mental state.
Kelly Garrett, Arion, Iowa. That's the western part of Iowa, just a couple of counties away from the Missouri River there, sharing that guidance with us. We thank the folks at FMC and Farm Futures.